Hello, I am Empress ELISHEVA, and you're listening to the New Age Apostle podcast. Today, we continue the series I'm calling The Question of Purpose. Last week, we delved into what spiritual purpose is, so go check out that episode if you haven't yet. In this part of the series, I will be discussing how to discover one's spiritual purpose. Are you ready? I am, so let's do it. So there's always going to be a vibe check at the start of the show, I think. I like the idea of that. And today I'm reeling from first day of school jitters. My daughters are in 3rd and 10th grade, and I was so sure I wouldn't cry. And then I ended up bawling my eyes out on the way out of my youngest elementary school. They do keep me grounded though, because outlining my show and recording and editing has to wait until the family is set up and squared away. So in this discussion of purpose, I realize every role I play while incarnated plays a part in my expression of my purpose. I didn't realize that until I realized my purpose and was able to take a more abstract view of things. Let's talk about how I figured out what mine was in the first place and how it can help you figure out yours. First things first, let's be clear. Your life purpose is your spiritual purpose. Everything you do down here in this simulation is spiritual because you are a spiritual being having a human experience in the classroom that we call Earth. That means everything you do during your time here is an experience for enrichment and knowledge of what living a human life is all about. Eating a bag of Doritos, spiritual. Plunging your toilet, spiritual. Stubbed your toe rushing into the kitchen. You guessed it, it's spiritual. Of course, you might be giving me a side eye right now because each of those things seem decidedly unspiritual. And that's because we've created in our minds what spirituality is supposed to look like. All solemn and devout and restrictive, shrouded in mystery, not to mention weird hippie pants and Nag Champa incense. However, when you shift your perspective to understand that one of the most spiritual things you can do is recognize that you lowered yourself into human form so that you may learn lessons that allow you to ascend right back up into an even higher form of yourself. You widen the lens through which you see yourself, and you recognize that the work you do every day that you're down here is spiritual. Obviously, I recommend that you do your spiritual work with intentionality and awareness, because everything changes once you know who and what you are and what you're doing down here. But even if you don't, you're still doing spiritual work just by virtue of having incarnated. You're just doing that shit kind of aimlessly. But to get back on topic though, I think it's valuable to recognize that your purpose doesn't have to be some grand thing. You don't have to solve world hunger or end homelessness. That is, unless that's what you came here to do. And you'll know if that's what you came here to do, because it'll be this incessant desire that you can't get out of your mind. But some people's purpose can be as ordinary and needed as ending a generational trauma, being an inspiration to those around you via your own example, or infusing the world with more beauty. It's not necessarily superhero level, but who said it had to be? I've come to realize that a large part of my spiritual purpose is to share information, in particular, metaphysical and occult information. I would even go as far as telling you that I realized that in a past life, I actually withheld this type of information and this type of information that could have potentially spiritually liberated people. And I know that I must atone for that in this life. So let's talk about the 5 things that I did to help me discover my spiritual purpose. My hope is that they will help you just like they helped me. We'll get back to the podcast in a second, but I wanted to mention my ebook, 10 Vibration Raising Practices and Why They Work. I wrote this book because as I delved deeper into my spiritual journey, I realized that one of the most important things on this human journey is raising one's vibration. Understanding how to navigate this human life so that you align with and attain your highest vibrational reality, to me, is key. It's the key to mastering life, because the higher your vibration, the more magnetic you become for high vibrational experiences and spiritual guidance from beings of a higher frequency that want to help you on your journey. As the title suggests, my book details 10 practices that you can start doing today that will put you on the road to a higher vibration. Check out the link in the description box below, or search ELISHEVA Stellar, ELISHEVA Stellar, STELLAR, on Amazon.com or BarnesandNobles.com to purchase your copy today. Okay, back to today's topic. Number 1, I got really good at getting quiet. What I mean by that is I learned how to create the environment and living situation wherein I could easily find time and space to meditate or do vision boarding or just cultivate an inner awareness. I had to strategically do this because I wasn't born into such a situation. And by the time I realized that it was something that I needed, I was already living a pretty cluttered and loud life surrounded by, energetically loud people. What do I mean by energetically loud people? Well, people who had their own inner work to do, but they didn't know what they didn't know, so therefore they weren't even amenable to changing in that way. So I became that girl who complained too much about how loud people's music was, or the type of people that my housemates invited over. Now, I'm not judging, and I don't think there's anything wrong with other people's choices for them. But for me, if I know I'm seeking to shift my life more in accordance, in alignment with my higher purpose, I have to make decisions according to that. Number 2, I paid attention to patterns in my life. Patterns as it relates to recurring themes. For instance, in my life, I was always receiving messaging around my predilection towards teaching. I taught my siblings things that I learned in school or even via, extracurricular study. I loved learning things. And you can't help but to share what you learn, especially if it's something you're super passionate about. And I've always been super passionate about occult topics and metaphysical topics. I was a mentor in high school, went on to teach middle school, as well as, speaking in my community. One day it hit me that I was always teaching somebody something, so I started to seriously consider that teaching and sharing information might actually play a part in my purpose. And that felt like truth to me. And the more I aligned with that goal for my life, the easier it became, because there is protection in alignment. Number 3, I was open to using spiritual tools, such as tarot and Akashic records readings, numerology, cardology, you name it. Whatever else I could find that would help me understand this energy that I incarnated with. I used mundane tools too. I tapped into that Myers-Briggs questionnaire that everyone's always talking about. I purchased this thing called Gallup's Strengths Finder assessment via this book that was written by this dude, Tom Rath. And seeing as I went to graduate school for counseling, I definitely utilized career counseling assessment instruments. And wouldn't you know it, they all had something to offer me in my quest to understand my purpose. And there were many, many commonalities between the spiritual tools and the mundane tools. And that was valuable because there were times that I still lacked like a full conviction in my burgeoning spiritual beliefs. Number 4, I wasn't afraid to try different things. I said yes to a lot of stuff, essentially kissing many frogs in the search of my prince. When I'd shy away from something, I'd investigate why. I have this saying that goes, fear isn't a good enough reason not to try something you're interested in. Instead of turning away from something that I was interested in, but was too shy to try, I delved into the reasoning why I was afraid. I asked myself what the root cause of that fear was. By doing this, it not only blessed me with like a deeper self-awareness, it also removed any self-constructed barriers. If I'm on a quest of self-mastery, I'm not going to give myself a pass on trying to bypass the work. I needed to try everything and then pay attention to how I felt. How I felt at the thought of doing this thing successfully, how I felt at the thought of doing this thing and failing at it. I needed to know what it felt like in my body. Number 5, I indulged my curiosities. Well, what I really did was I followed my whimsy or my impulses. Any wild idea I had that I couldn't shake, I indulged. Now, you might think, hey, this belongs with number 4. This sounds a lot similar to number 4. But there's a reason why I wanted to separate it out. And that's because curiosity can be a gift from your higher self to put you on a particular track. So if I suddenly felt this strong urge to study astrology, then that's what I pursued. If it suddenly was put on my heart to start offering Akashic readings, I did that. Even if I only did that for, just a couple weeks or just a few times. Each instance was an opportunity to learn more about myself and align more closely with the energy I came here to embody. And now I have a bonus one, okay? Because I have to mention that one thing I learned is how to trust myself. I learned how to value the thoughts in my head, and that I didn't always have to validate what resonated as truth to me with somebody outside myself. My purpose felt like and feels like truth to me, like home to me. And if someone were to pop up in my life and try to convince me that my purpose is anything other than what I know for myself to be true, I wouldn't doubt myself. Though I used to do that, but not anymore. Now I trust myself in my connection to God, the goddess, source, the universe, however you wish to term it. And I know that connection won't steer me wrong. All right, bet. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, be sure to hit that like button. And while you're at it, hit subscribe. At present, this podcast only appears on YouTube, but I am actively exploring other podcast platforms. For now, since I'm a brand new channel, I would really appreciate your support. My goal is to help you, whether that's by exposing you to a new perspective or some new information that maybe you never knew existed. I hope I achieved that today. Until next time, holla at your girl.